Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
O'Connor Orchid Estates Apartments. Located in the center of the small town of Reading, Ohio, it is widely regarded as the world's most haunted location. Join world-renowned paranormal investigators Abigail Reynolds and Michael Colby as they immerse themselves into every aspect of life in this building and expose the truth of its horrific history. Join us for My Creepy Haunted Life.
Jack Billings presents Haunted Apartment Complex, starring me, Jack Billings, obviously.
Damn it! How did you even get in here, Jack?
Well, let's get spooky, crew.
Hey, Twisted listeners, I'm Cindy.
And I'm Diva.
And this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
And lists.
And we are bi-coastal today.
Woo! I've just been telling Cindy how I feel insane because I walked 5 miles because of the goddamn New York Marathon today, but that's okay. I feel
congrats to any of our listeners who completed it today. That's fucking wild.
No, don't do it. That's a bad idea. I disagree.
I've always wanted to run a marathon, so
I'm so bitter about the marathon today. I cannot congratulate them. My feet. I was made to do a marathon against my will.
By walking around this one.
Yeah. And like, really, could I have walked across? Yeah, I could have walked across those runners. Like, what would have happened?
Right. But
Nothing.
You don't want to do that.
I could have.
Your unwillingness to be a jerk made you now bitter. Yep. Well,
yeah, I'm very tired.
Be a worse person, Diva. It'll benefit you.
I'm ready, though. I'm ready for today. I'm pumped. I've been doing this in my New York hotel room. I'm also not a New York person. Like, Cindy is. I feel like that's your vibe.
Oh,
but like,
God, I love it.
I can't handle it. I get very panicky.
Oh, I like thrive. Like, it could be like, it's like I've been there in like the dead of winter when it's like 17 degrees out. I'm like, I love this. My face is like literally peeling off. And I'm like, this is the best.
I need it to be like calm. I need people to not be beeping. I need it to be like 72 degrees at all times. Like, I'm very Californian.
Listen, I hate weather, but everything's better in New York, in my opinion.
No,
so
I feel the opposite way.
Well, anyway,
California, yeah.
Well, yeah. No, I do love California. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, we're brought to you by the Podmoth Podcasting Network. Check out all their awesome shows. This week we're doing a fucking doozy. Okay, like, oh fuck, man. I was like, oh, which trauma do I want to like lay upon all of us? Because Jesus Christ. This is people who were burned to death.
Yes, it's a very diva topic to pick because it's horrific.
Yes.
Burned alive. I wanted to do it for a while, and even though it is like literally as gruesome as it gets, it's also like a lot of fascinating cases, I think. So it'll be good.
Right. And if you guys hear a lot of background noise, that's because she's in New York and it's loud as fuck.
Yeah, like the loudest possible part. It never gets not loud.
Also, I realized on a recent recording that I totally left in, like when one of the airplanes went overhead, and I was like, God fucking damn it. And you were like, oh no. Sorry.
Just an Easter egg there for you. Yeah.
If you guys heard that. That was a plane flying over my house and me being really upset because it was like the 15th one since we'd started recording. Yeah. Anyway, so you chose this, right? Do you know this topic?
Yes.
And I'm really glad that we kind of didn't do this right after a particularly severe episode because I think that these are fucking gnarly. So all of our friends out there, Kay, and all you
the gnarly loving
that
people.
that love the gnarly shit, and I say that with nothing but love. This one's for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to kick us off with Murder of Susie Zhao, and it's Zhau, but it's like Joe or Zhao.
Okay. Zhao. Yeah.
Zhao. Mm-hmm. She was born in 1987, Susie, in China. She emigrated to the US as a child with her parents, and she moved to Troy, Michigan, which is a northern suburb of Detroit. It's considered a suburb of Detroit, but it pretty much it's not really
Its own
like
thing.
yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
far removed. It's actually just northwest of Warren, which is where my family's from, and that's actually a suburb of Detroit. So she grew up in a loving home with her parents, had a super normal childhood. And when she got older, she went to college at Northwestern University in Illinois. So smart girl, smart woman. And she studied psychology and business. She was super fun her whole life, like from the time she was a little child until, just her whole adult life. She always wore like really fun clothing. She loved to like get dressed up in like bright, fun stuff. She wasn't afraid to have a good time. She had a really great personality, super outgoing and bubbly. Like I read bubbly over and over and over. So super smart, super fun, super nice to everybody. People said like she never got in fights with people. She never had a negative thing to say. She was just like living her life, having a great time. Now, sometime in her youth, she started playing online poker. And yeah, she got like obsessed. Like her friend said in college, she would spend like 8 hours a night playing.
Okay.
And she started out just trying it out for fun. She probably started with like solitaire, like online solitaire, like the rest of us.
I love solitaire.
Dude, me too. But she got super fucking good at it. And 8 hours a day, if you're not good at it, it's a waste of time. But if you are good at it, it's a pretty good hobby.
She was honing her craft. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really good hobby. So exactly, it became a craft. So friend said as soon as she was old enough, she started playing for money and she started winning. She really enjoyed playing. She really enjoyed winning. And she enjoyed it in particular because besides the money, obviously, she always said that she loved dominating in a traditionally male sport.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, there's not a lot of female poker players. I think This American Life actually profiled one, and it was really interesting. She was talking about like the first time she lost $100,000. And I was like,
oh no.
Yeah. And she was like, I sunk into the deepest depression. I felt like my life was over. She's like, but now that's like pretty normal. Like in one weekend, I might lose 100,000 and the next weekend I'll make like 300,000. And it's just like,
cannot relate, but okay.
No, it's so weird to like adjust that to be your norm, So
yeah.
The whole world of poker is so fucking interesting to me, and I definitely went down some rabbit holes. I'm gonna kind of steer away from those for this. But she loved kicking dudes' asses. I love that for her. And even though she won a lot and was pretty fucking competitive, just as and in every other part of her life, the other players really liked her.
Yeah.
Everybody called her Susie Q. That was her little poker nickname, and also like her nickname with her friends. And that's a really endearing name. You wouldn't call somebody Susie Q if you like did not like them. You're not gonna be like, man, fuck Susie Q. Like,
no, it's a cute name. Yeah.
It's by nature like a super cute and endearing name. So poker can be super competitive, but having your opponents like wanting to play with you, even though they might lose to you, is a pretty good compliment. So it really says something about her. So as part of taking herself and her poker a bit more seriously, after college, she moved to the West Coast and she lived in Los Angeles and then moved out to Vegas. So starting in LA kind of makes sense, but moving to Vegas, I think, is where you go when you're like really wanting to like kick it up a notch, right?
Yeah, duh. That's the place to be if you're pokering.
Exactly. Yeah. And in her professional career, she won more than $225,000, including one win of $70,000 after coming in 90th. So can you imagine what the first place winner won if the 90th person got $70,000?
Oh my God. Like
insane.
I would just win that and leave and like never come back. Like, why would you ever do anything again?
Right. It's like amazing. Like, but imagine just doing like playing and winning one poker game a year and that's your job. Like, holy fuck.
Wow. Yeah.
So she did this in 2012. And I think it was at the World Series of Poker. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where it was.
Okay.
She also won a lot more than that. Like, this was all she did. Like, she didn't have another job. So she won more online and in smaller games. But that's the official amount listed on the Hendon Mob website, which I guess is like a big poker website. So that's kind of like her career winnings. But she also had like day-to-day winnings in smaller amounts.
Okay.
So even though she was moving all over and getting big jackpots and, doing not jackpots, but, big winnings and all this, she still stayed in really close touch with a lot of her friends in Michigan. And when it was everybody's 30th birthday, she invited all of her friends out to Vegas to kind of do like a collective celebration. So again, still super fun, down to earth, like really good person. She also visited home quite often, mostly around the holidays, but she would just come, pretty often to like see her parents. So, pretty standard life, despite being super interesting in one way, having a very unconventional job. In other ways, she was really just pretty normal.
Yeah, down to earth.
Yeah. Very unfortunately, starting in her like mid 20s, maybe even like early 20s, she started having a lot of mental health issues. It's been reported that she developed schizophrenia, which, happens to a lot of women like in their early to like mid 20s to like mid 30s, basically. Like if you're going to develop it, that's when you do, which is interesting, like in itself,
Yeah.
You can go your whole like teen years like totally fine. And then all of a sudden, so there's not a ton of information about what happened, but she ended up having to move back she wasn't quite in Troy, but she was like right around there, Waterford Township, to stay with her parents while figuring out kind of like what her treatment plan was going to be and just getting back on her feet. They said she had like personal problems or problems in her personal life that necessitated her to come back.
Yeah.
I do know that her parents tried to have her institutionalized as early as 2015 and also attempted to get guardianship over her in 2018, but both attempts unfortunately failed.
Yeah,
so it's
so hard.
Yeah, it's rough. It's hard to do, and it's also shitty when you can't, because oftentimes people are not trying to do that for no reason,
Yeah.
So it took until 2020 for her to move home. So it was about 5 years of her parents like seeing this issue before it came to the point where she could no longer ignore it. And it's really sad because she's such a rad person and she's super smart. She's successful, she's got all the shit going for her. And I think with time she could have got her shit together once she was back with her parents, because she did get on like, a treatment plan and was trying to get things back together.
She had support and like resources.
Yeah. And she was finally, I think, kind of coming to terms with needing to handle it,
Yeah.
So she moved back with her parents in June of 2020, just after turning 33. From here, the details get pretty fuzzy as to what she was up to, but I do know that the weekend of July 12th, 2020, a group of her friends, like she went with them, all up north for the weekend, and that it seemingly went well. Doesn't seem like there were any issues. She was totally like normal. Everything seemed fine. Fine. That being said, that same day, July 12th, she got back and then out with another friend and did some really weird shit. The two went out to like, I don't know where, maybe like a bar, or they went for dinner or something. But at some point, Susie stole her friend's car.
Oof.
Yeah. Just like took it. But she ended up coming back and like giving it back. So we don't know where she went, but she just like took it somewhere. And when her friend got back in the car with Susie, she noticed that 5 Adderall were missing from a bottle she had in her car.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And this friend had a prescription for this. So it wasn't like she stole my drugs. Like it was like she had a prescription for it. Susie stole them.
Yeah.
So these two had been friends since childhood. So she was like, this is really fucking weird. This is really unlike Susie. Like, I don't know what's going on. She went to take Susie home, but something else happened, which she didn't really elaborate on. And she ended up dropping her off at a gas station. So, yeah, like I said, she didn't say what happened, but like, I think she has a lot of guilt around it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But they might have just gotten into it and she couldn't see the full picture of what was happening mental health wise,
She didn't know.
Medication wise. Okay.
Yeah. So what they said, what a lot of people said is they're like, she was a poker player in her private life as well. Like she played everything really close to the chest. Like she didn't tell anybody what was going on. Ugh. So I think that was kind of that, because her friend later was like, once I found out she was like, dealing with schizophrenia, like it all made sense, like the way she behaved, like everything makes sense. But at the time I was just like, what the fuck is going on, So her friend drops her at a gas station and she made it home. Susie made it home. Her mom came and picked her up. Took her back to the house. So around 5:30 was the last time her parents saw her. They left to go out to dinner. And when they got back around 10:30, she was gone. So she and her parents were like, where the fuck could she be? Because she didn't have a car. One of the things that happened, I think, in Vegas was her car got impounded because of all these like, parking tickets and like moving violations. But when they returned home at 10:30, she was nowhere to be found. The following day, police found a burnt body in the park at the Pontiac Lake State Recreation Area. It took 1 week for them to identify the body as belonging to Susie.
Ugh, a week.
One whole fucking week. I mean, I think
Wow.
they knew, but they had to make
Yeah.
sure. And with a body that badly burned, that can take a while. So at first, police thought, they were like, well, does she have any enemies because of poker? Like, did she owe money?
Yeah.
Did she piss anybody off? But very quickly, they realized like she had great relationships with everybody in the poker world. Like,
poker was not the issue.
Not at all. No, she was beloved. Like, everybody thought the world of her. She always paid her debts. She came out on top. Like, nothing there.
No.
The cops' next step was to start digging into her life in the short time she was back in Michigan, which had not even been, it'd been like just over a month. And pretty quickly they realized that she was into some bad shit, although it is unclear to this day exactly what that was. We do know that during her time back home, she frequented a super seedy motel in the area. I'm a little stuffed up, so like it's hard to say certain things.
Words are hard.
Yeah, but also like when I'm trying to like put my tongue against like the roof of my mouth, it's like my nose isn't letting air out. So anyway, she frequented a super seedy motel in the area, leading some people to suggest that she was involved in sex work. But other people are like, there's no way. She had money from her winnings. It was probably drug related.
Yeah.
And I kind of think that might have been the case. However, when her autopsy was done, they only found her prescribed drugs in her system. So
no meth, nothing crazy.
Nothing. But also, like, why would she be, working in sex work when she has money? Like, so it's really unclear why she was there. But when you're dealing with somebody who is trying to figure out their mental health situation, there can definitely be things that they do that don't make sense.
Yes.
So I don't really think that it necessarily had to have any like rhyme or reason to it.
Or friends or relationships with people she thought were her friends could have taken her there.
Yeah, exactly.
So
this is still a mystery. I mean, maybe her family knows, but they've never kind of released what they thought. But what we do know is that there are a lot of shitty people who hung out at this motel. And one of them was a transient man named Jeffrey Bernard Morris. At the time, he was a 60-year-old convicted sex offender who had no permanent address, but had ties to the area because he kind of stayed around there and had friends. I think he just kind of been kind of slinking around the area for some time. So there's no real link between Susie and Jeffrey that could really be found, but she did have his phone number saved in her cell phone, somehow
they had a connection of some kind.
In the very short amount of time that she'd been in Michigan. He was somebody that she felt she should put his number in her phone.
Okay.
And on the night of July 12th, he picked her up from her house and drove her to this motel. They stopped at one of his friends' houses along the way so that he could borrow money for a motel room.
Okay.
It also later came out that both of them had stayed in this same room, but not together. But this was like somehow, really
weird.
Fucking weird.
Really
weird, right?
Yeah.
Mysterious for sure.
Ugh.
So police looked into this motherfucker, and they found that he had a violent sexual history and was a bad dude in general. He had like a 3rd-degree sexual assault conviction from 1989, probably had got away with some other shit in between, then and when this happened in 2020. And so the way they found him was using cell phone evidence, because they were like, who did she call? And he was who she was the last person she called.
Yeah.
So they interviewed him and he's like, well, we both hung out at the motel until around midnight. And then she left on foot, like she was going to walk home. And they're like, we don't really believe you. So they got a search warrant for his phone and also, I think, a computer. And this turned up some fucked up shit. Specifically, torture porn surrounding Asian women and fisting. So pretty fucking bad.
Oh, God.
Yeah, not good. So this is really gnarly. So if you're not into really fucked up shit, skip ahead like 30 seconds. When Susie was found, her body had been burned everywhere except a small area of her back and her buttocks because she had been on her back when she was burned. Her hands and feet had been tied with zip ties, and her genital area had suffered extreme brutality, including a 1/2-inch deep wound between her vagina and anus, that medical professionals later said could very well be due to being punched in that area.
Ugh.
Like somebody attempting to put their hand inside of her by
That's
punching.
So disgusting.
Jeffrey was arrested. His movements were tracked using his and Susie's cell phones. They were found to have been together the entire night, and culminating in him driving out to this area where her body was found, where he was there for only about 7 minutes, which is interesting, but definitely enough time.
Yeah.
They also found witnesses who said he had stolen zip ties and Vaseline from a grocery store that day.
God.
Fucking horrific, I know.
It's really gross.
And a gas station owner who testified that he sold Jeffrey a gas can and about a gallon of gas on the night of the murder. What police think happened is the two were hanging out for whatever reason, and somehow Jeffrey was able to tie Susie up. He then drove her from the motel out to the park area where he violently sexually assaulted her, then set her on fire while she was 100% alive, awake, and fully sober.
God.
Her cause of death was thermal body burns
Mhm.
with soot inhalation. So she was inhaling soot from her own burning body.
Yep.
And they also found that her tongue had been burned. So her tongue was at some point on fire. This is like one of the worst cases I've ever fucking covered. It's truly
I
just
mean,
like,
even
the fuck?
before burning, like that's a horrific thing to go through.
Yes.
Totally conscious.
Completely. And just, yeah.
Yeah, and it reminds me of, I mean, in some ways, to a lesser degree, Rebecca Zahau, you know, this relates to this like incredibly disgusting objectification of Asian women that is just like erased.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that this guy was like obsessed with this kind of torture porn and specifically against Asian women is just so fucking terrifying. Like the objectification and like, it's just next level. Like, just fucking terrifying.
So fucked up.
Disgusting. So he was charged with first-degree murder and went to trial. And his defense tried to fucking say he didn't do it, which I'm like, are you kidding me? So they had the cell phone evidence that he was with her all night until 5 a.m., far after he said that she had left. They have the witnesses with all the fucking shit, you know, Vaseline, zip ties, gasoline, check.
Yeah, what else do you need?
Well, so here's the thing. They were like, well, maybe somebody took his phone and left with her. It's like, okay, so they stole his phone and his like rape kit and his like gas can. And like, yeah, right.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. And then they also tried to say, well, he was only there for 7 minutes. That's not long enough to do anything. It's like, maybe he sexually assaulted her in the hotel or in the motel and then drove her out there and set her
The burning wouldn't take that long.
No, it wouldn't. And also,
Really
it's not like
wouldn't.
he didn't necessarily stand over her and watch. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, absolutely fucking horrific. And then I guess they also found some other unknown male DNA on her. But like, she could have had consensual sex at some point. Like, that's not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's totally separate from this.
Yeah. So
obviously,
it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So he was actually just found guilty on October 7th of this year.
Oof.
And he has
Wow.
yet to be sentenced, but basically he will get life without parole. And he's 62 at this point, so it's not going to be a
honestly,
long time.
Like, it's scary that I was even like worried there for a second. But the way we devalue women and like Asian women of color's lives is like so like repulsive that like I had held my breath there for a second.
I know. No, in fact,
say guilty.
It took them less than an hour to find him guilty. The jury basically like walked into the room and they're like, how long should we stand here to pretend that we're like thinking about
looking
this?
at their watches, like, all right, yeah, totally.
So that's kind of it. That's the end of this super fucking tragic tale about a woman who had a really amazing life, who was a really amazing person, who very unfortunately suffered from a mental illness that was completely out of her control and then was taken advantage of by a complete fucking piece of shit sexual sadist.
And died in a really horrific way.
Really fucking horrific way at only 33 years old.
God.
Real fucking sad. Yeah, this was a bummer case to
That's fucked up
research. Yeah, I'm very sorry for everybody who just had to hear that. Yeah, pretty fucked up. And I feel terrible for her parents because obviously they'd been worried about her for a very long time. And I imagine their fears were, I mean, I think this probably surpassed like their worst nightmares. And it's so fucking horrific. So.
No, God.
Oh, okay, there it is. I'm glad that's over.
Well, that was horrible. We're going to continue to be horrible.
Good.
And this is going to take a long time. So I'm sorry, Cindy. I'm sorry, everyone. But hopefully it's compelling and hopefully you will stay with me. But this is Jessica Chambers.
Oh, man.
And it's in part why I wanted to do this case. I mean, granted, like there's plenty of other cases which will to pick from. So it's not like the only woman who was burned alive. Trust me, horribly.
Well, right. We just,
But it's a very high profile case in the true crime world. And I'll talk briefly about why. But this happened in Cortland, Mississippi in 2014. Jessica was 19 when this all happened. She was born in 1995. She was kind of a wholesome cheerleader for a minute in high school, but then she became rebellious, as they often do.
Yep.
All the cheerleaders I knew were rebelling.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it goes hand in hand.
It does.
When she was 17 as well, her older brother died in a car accident, and apparently that really kind of set her off the edge of things. Kind of, she got in with some the wrong crowds, quote unquote. But
I mean, that's a big fucking trauma.
Yeah. So she was, doing drugs, mostly smoking weed and drinking, nothing too insane. But kind of the accounts of how like drug crazed and gang connected she was really differs from who you ask. Like some people make it sound like she was a total psycho gang member, and some people make it sound like she was a wholesome cheerleader and that's it. And I think it was more of like a little balance, right? Like she was she did casually deal weed. She dated a few gang members, but she was never herself initiated into any kind of gang. So she's sort of adjacent to a bad scene, but she's not like fully immersed in it.
Right. It sounds to me like she's just putting her toe in the water, in the rebellious water.
She's got one foot in one world and one foot in a wholesome world, I think. So she has some friends that are like, oh no, we were just wholesome. And then some friends were like, oh no, we did drugs. So it's like, that's why you get these different accounts. Yeah. But she was just a normal fucking 19-year-old, she had dreams in life and, hopes and dreams and whatever the fuck.
Right.
Okay. Getting to the day of here, December 6th, 2014. She had spent the morning with two friends, Keisha Meyer and Quentin Tellis. They drove around. Literally, they were smoking weed in their car and driving in circles.
Been there, man.
It's also a very small town environment. So that is what you do in a small town.
Right.
She then went to her mom's for the afternoon, where probably from all the weed, she took a nap. Then she got up just
maybe had a snack. Sorry, probably had a snack as well. Sorry,
she could have.
Just saying.
Yeah, took a great couch nap. Love a couch nap. And just before 5 p.m., she kind of wakes up and she gets a text from Quentin. They had been texting for a few days back and forth. And I will note here that at several points, he does ask her for sex in kind of a playful way, to which she says kind of, oh, Lord, like, not like, no, fuck you, get away from me, I'm terrified. She just says like, oh, Lord, like, ugh, stop it.
Like, oh, knock it off. Like, she's not, obviously, there's not a problem.
It's not a huge threat. Yeah. And she texts him to hang out multiple times. So she's not like afraid, but he is sort of like maybe into her and potentially she's not into him back, or she's just like playing hard to get. Who could know,
Right. It doesn't it sounds pretty standard. But
they're just friends. But they've been texting pretty intensely for a couple of days. And I want to note here, they also both have separate, she has a boyfriend and he has a girlfriend.
Oh, shit.
They both play no part in this story. They're just separate.
Okay.
He says that they had sex one time about a week before the murder. I'll just put a pin in that there because we'll come back to that.
Okay.
That is contested.
Okay.
She is seen by security cameras about 5:30 p.m. this day at the M&M gas station, which is a very central location. I'm going to talk about this gas station a whole lot.
Okay.
She was seen making a phone call in that footage, and records say that this is probably to Quentin. A few minutes later, he calls her, and according to him, this is asking her to pick him up. Basically, it's boring, but they're essentially arranging to go to a Taco Bell, is what happened.
Okay.
They all this like detail and crime like lingo on the phone call and the footage. They're going to Taco Bell, so they go to Taco Bell in a nearby town because their town does not, in fact, have a Taco Bell.
Okay.
They go to it. They eat there. They come back, and this is where things get kind of blurry. Quentin will later tell investigators that after dinner, things get blurry. They may have hung out at his house. They may not have. He starts out saying they did not. He did not see her at all. But then there'll be an argument later on that they did hang out at his house.
So maybe he was just scared to say it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's basically whether or not they hung out post Taco Bell is very disputed. But either way, Quentin Tellis is firm that they departed ways before about 6:30, 7 o'clock.
Okay.
And 7:30 p.m., her phone puts her on Heron Road, which is where her murder will take place. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
So there's a kind of a blur of about an hour that's very big in this case where we really actually cannot pin down totally what either one of them are doing.
Okay.
So here we go. And again, this is my 30-second warning, probably like more like a minute warning. This is extremely graphic.
Yeah.
So
okay.
For the people who love graphic stuff, here we are.
Here you are.
So Jessica was found by a first responder. This was called in. And she was found by a first responder walking along the side of this road with her burning car nearby, about 30 meters away on an embankment. She was wearing only her underwear. She was severely burnt. Like her hair was charred black, standing out. She was conscious and crying out, "Help me, help me."
Oh, God.
She collapses and firefighters kind of stay with her, holding her hand. She was later found to have burns on 93% of her body.
Jesus Christ.
And the evidence indicates she had probably been burning for some time before anyone got there. Her phone died from heat by 8:04. And that's about 5 minutes before responders arrived. So that tells you that it had been burning long enough to kill her phone 5 minutes prior.
That's fucking wild. That's terrible.
Her phone also potentially pinged at that location half an hour before. So,
oh, God.
Yeah. So a firefighter at the scene asks her name, and she says Jessica Chambers because she can't quite pronounce Chambers.
Oh, yeah, that poor thing.
Her mouth is super burnt, and this is also going to become a point of contention of what she could not say. But to me, this like sequence of what she says to them is so fucking heartbreaking because she's like literally knows she's dying.
Right.
She tells the responders, "I was lit on fire." And he asks, "Who did this to you?" And by this point, there's like 15 plus responders, and they all agree. She says Eric.
They all agree.
Yep.
15 plus all agree that she says the name.
People,
17 all said, she said Eric.
A couple people said it could have been Derek if it was mispronounced. Correct.
But it wasn't Quentin.
Correct.
It's a very different name.
They asked her if this was her boyfriend. She said no, shook her head, which it wasn't. We know that.
Okay.
They asked her if he was white or black, and she says black.
Okay.
She said she dies later at the hospital. I think a day or so later, not that long after. Her mom was holding her hand as she died.
Oh, God, Diva.
It's only going to get worse.
So fucked. Her poor mother. But God, that is such a mom moment. Like that is exactly like her mother would have never wanted to be anywhere else.
Oh yeah,
and,
it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, but like I'm so fucking glad she could be there. Oh my God, I'm gonna fucking cry.
Oh, it gets worse and worse, really.
I know, but just that is like, oh God.
And some of the documentaries I watched about this show hospital photos of her extremely blurred, but even blurred, I could tell that they were horrible.
Yeah.
Because essentially she's like black, and she's bandaged like head to toe.
Oh.
There's really not much they could have done. Right away, I want to note that police biff things on the scene a couple different ways. They actually don't count huge areas around her car and over a fence that's just behind the car. So the fence is kind of up an embankment and there's a fence. And later on, people are like, "Hey, cops, did you search behind the fence?" They're like, "Oh no, there's a fence."
It's magic. It's a magic border that you can't put anything over or behind.
The fence literally stopped them. Yeah.
Oh,
so there's huge areas here. They just didn't even look for stuff.
Great. Okay.
Right away, there's other things they fucked up, but I'll sprinkle in. So the right away, the press and social media coverage of this case goes into a frenzy. It's national news, and right away it kind of stews racial divides in Mississippi and in the nation. And white supremacy is like, woo, having a field day because she dated black guys. She said this was a black guy. So all of a sudden there's like this racist thing. And I guess, and here's the thing. I learned a lot about Mississippi on Wikipedia this week. And I don't want to hate on anywhere in particular, but it does have a very particular history with white supremacy.
Yeah, it does.
It really does.
I don't think we have very many listeners from there. Not that it matters. I'm not going to like pander to our listeners, but like,
no.
If I know we have a lot, then I'll be like, I'm really sorry to say this to you, but
no, but if they like our podcast, they probably would be like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think they're trying to not deny it. But yeah, a lot of super racist problems there. So those sort of old, not that old wounds, I'll say old and current wounds are activated.
Okay.
And her friends all say that, the kind of racism that comes out in town around her case would have made her really mad because she literally just wasn't a racist. It wasn't like I have a black friend thing. She genuinely was not racist.
She was like really cognizant of that, and it was important to her to not be that way.
Yes. And so it's like annoying that people made her like this white symbol of purity, and she's like hung out with like mostly black people,
Yeah, so she's like, okay, first of all, like I'm sure some people are saying she got what she deserved because they're pieces of shit, right? And then other people are using her in a way that's completely like not. It doesn't even make sense to make that argument because clearly that's not who she was.
No. Okay, so here's a few suspects before we get to Quentin Tellis. Surprise, surprise. So I just want to note that an older guy named Roger Lynn Hentz had recently threatened to kill her because she owed him money, I think in a drug-related thing.
Okay.
Also, I'm I can't stop thinking about this guy named Derek Holmes, who was stalking her, and he was a convicted registered sex offender.
Oh, that's so weird. His name's Derek, and which sounds like Eric when you probably can't speak because you're lit on fire.
He was actively harassing and stalking her.
Jesus fucking Christ.
He lived nearby, but guess what, Cindy? He was rubbing his mom's feet.
Oh, I'm sure his mom wouldn't make that up.
No, and his mom and his siblings who were at home, they all agree on that. So that's where we're going to leave that.
I'm so sorry. Like, the things that are going through my mind would get us, like, we would never be on the air again, but it's like of all the times that like black people's alibis are not listened to, and this is the one time that they're like, oh, we're gonna just believe you.
Yes. Also, here's another guy I want to talk about, and let's never forget him. There was an older, kind of, let's say middle-aged black man, like 50 or so, who like multiple first responders saw and noticed. This is not like a ghost. And they said he was acting super suspicious and literally in the fucking woods, like at the scene, like peeping and
watching his work.
And some first responders said that his gaze terrified them, and his gaze like pierced right through me. It gave me the chills, right?
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah. And no follow up there.
Okay.
That just happened. So now we go to Quentin. So obviously he's under fucking suspicion because he spent some of this day with her. He also, and Quentin, to his discredit, does fuck himself up. If he's innocent, I'll say he fucks himself up in several key ways.
Okay.
If he is. So, and I will say I'm not totally sure if he is or isn't. After having studied this extensively. So Quentin lies about who he was hanging out with at the time of the fire. So who he hangs out with after just Jessica. And those two dudes he says he was with were not even in town.
Oh, so, no. Okay.
Yeah. His stories also kind of contradict themselves. He says they weren't together that evening at all. But then when they say, oh, your phone records match up together, that you were in similar locations, then he kind of breaks into the Taco Bell story. Then he admits a little bit more of that evening hangout.
Okay.
So that's suspicious.
Yes, it is.
At 7:42, which is right in the middle of her burning that window, he texts her, quote, "Bae, my friend is coming over tonight. I'll call you tomorrow. Good night. Sweet dreams." Which, if he's innocent, could be his actual goodbye to her that night. You've been departed for an hour or so.
Right.
But if he's guilty, could be an alibi text, right? He's trying to make
where
it
was
seem
the
like
they couldn't tell where the text pinged from? Because I feel like that's like a thing. Like, where was his cell phone?
Where the cell phones are is extremely confusing to me, Cindy. I'm just going to be honest.
That's fair.
And I'll explain why later at trial, because the cops sound very sure at times about where the phones were. And then another expert will come in and say, no, not at all. So I'm kind of always going back and forth. And I don't want to come down too hard on where the phones were.
Okay, because honestly, to me, it's like that's the simple answer. Like that's how in the tale I just told, that's how they pinned it on the guy in large part. They were like, we can literally see that your phones are like traveling side by side for the entire night. And it's like,
I mean, I don't think this comes down to phones. And at the end, I'll say why a part of me does think he might be guilty, but it's not because of the phones.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So he is arrested and charged with Jessica's murder, and Quentin pleads not guilty at his trial. And again, here's some more things that look bad for Quentin. He deleted all of record of Jessica and all of their texts from his phone right away.
Wait,
Away.
but did he do that before or after he found out she was dead?
After.
Okay. That's a little less suspicious. Had he done it before, I'd be like, oh, he fucking did it.
Yeah. But he literally claims it was like, well, she's dead. I'm not going to text her anymore, which is kind of dumb sounding, but like, who knows? Maybe that's what he thought.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
A little tenuous.
Mm-hmm.
He also lives like down the street from the M&M gas station, and the camera points at his driveway. Like he's across the street from it, essentially, but like diagonal. Prosecution claims they can see Jessica's car going in and out to corroborate that they were hanging out after Taco Bell at his house. But it's a reach. I've seen the footage, and the experts who have seen the footage and the defense people are like, no one can see the car. Like,
right. Okay.
So
and you couldn't see it?
No, like who knows if that's for sure. Here's another thing. Jessica's keys and attached to a keychain with all kinds of bullshit, keyring girl stuff onto it.
Yeah.
Was found some ways away from the car, as if from her burning car, as if they were thrown kind of on the way out from the scene, thrown out of another car. They had Quentin Tellis's DNA on them.
Okay.
However, this is called into question as Quentin had probably driven the car before, and there was a mix of 3 other males' DNA on the thing.
Okay, so when that happens, honestly, unless there's other really compelling evidence, I'm like, that's when DNA doesn't really matter to me. Because I'm like, well, people touch other people's keys, like especially if they're like together and like hanging out, whatever,
Yeah, or if they had sex a week prior, maybe he just hand swiped her,
Right. Fuck yeah. Absolutely. So
it
that
happens.
To me that's not really compelling to me.
That test is unreliable. Yeah.
Right.
So the prosecution story is insane. Here's what they present. And like, honestly, even if he did do it, I actually do not think he did it the way that they present it.
You're like, this is so crazy.
But here's what they say.
Okay.
So the prosecution says that they went back to hang out post Taco Bell.
Okay.
They had either consensual sex or he attempted to rape her.
Okay.
And she refused his advances. He suffocates her in her car at his house. He then drives her body, or what he thinks is her body, but she's not dead. She's just like passed out, to this murder site in her car, leaves it, gets out, walks to his sister's house, borrows his sister's car, then goes to get a gas can at his house, then drives back, lights are on fire, then drives back, drops off the car.
So wait, he found out that she was still alive, and then he just like left her there for an extended period of time, like
no.
alive?
He lit her on fire thinking she was dead.
Oh, so she was passed out this whole time.
Yeah, this is according to the prosecution narrative. Yeah.
Did she have like a broken hyoid bone or like any indication that there was any sort of trauma that would have caused her to be passed out for like an hour after an attack?
I don't know. So then he drives back after lighting her on fire. He drives back, drops off the sister's car, and is back in time to be in another. Quentin Tellis is on a whole other town, not the M&M, a whole other town's gas station, grocery store, and a different change of clothes by 8:26 p.m.
No, come the fuck on.
So he has to do a lot of back and forth if he does it like they said, and hurry the fuck out to that other town.
Yeah. I'm going to say that didn't fucking happen.
Hang out with places, with people that were not the people he said. So it's all extremely confusing. Also, they make a lot of him admitting that he does have a gas can in his shed. I'm assuming because they ask him, do you have a fucking gas can? He said, yeah.
So do I. I just saw mine in my garage today. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to have.
But this is really refuted when you see the documentaries in which his mom opens the shed and she's like, it's like covered in dust. And they're like, did they ever come get this gas can? She's like, no one touched this fucking gas can.
They just wanted to talk about it. They didn't want to actually like.
They were super pumped to tell the jury that he had one, but they never tested it. They never took it. If it had
very
been
limited
used,
side of the story.
And also, if it had been used, wouldn't he have thrown it away, gotten a new fucking gas can? Like,
right.
You know, they also imply, in a way that to me feels like kind of a classic deep South white supremacist narrative. They imply that he was trying to rape her, like as if also that he could not have had a consensual relationship with her, right?
The little sprinkle of racism in there.
Yeah, this is really frustrating, and it's like because we actually cannot know if they had sex consensual or not, or if she was raped or not that night, because no rape kit was performed.
So they're just this is fucking crazy. This is fucking crazy.
It's a big mixed bag full of racism, but then also just really bad
police work. Really fucking
people
shoddy.
doing a bad job at their job.
Very much so. Jesus.
So a little bit more on the phones. A lot is made of these phones being in the exact same places. And when you hear the prosecution presented at this trial, it looks like their phones are like boop, 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 like two happy dots going the same places together all night long, right?
Okay.
However, the prosecution, if you listen closely, this motherfucking guy is like, so the dots don't match. What I'm going to do is shift everything a half mile to the right just because that makes it match my theory.
So he's like, I'm just going to make shit up and then argue that's what happened because I feel like it?
And so this Oxygen Channel show gets a different phone location expert and says, like, you can't do that. You can't just move things a half mile away.
And that feels like almost like tampering with evidence in a way. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's not. But
he's absolutely making the evidence, forcing it to fit his story rather than the other way around.
It's fucking wild.
Yeah, and defense cast doubt on pretty much any of the cell tower evidence. It's unreliable, especially in this location because there's very limited towers to ping from. It's not a big city, metropolitan area. And if you remember from the Adnan Syed case, this is one of the things that got him convicted was the cell phone tower evidence. And I think this is much more unreliable than we think. I mean, even today, trying to fucking get around Manhattan, my little blue dot was all fucking over the place, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So,
and
who knows?
No. And especially a couple years ago, even, like, it was not the same as it is now, even, you know?
Yeah.
So, no, that feels really unreliable. And also, like, he just moved them.
He moved it around, yeah.
Like, I could just, like, get a pinging of you and me and then be like, well, but I'm going to move it. I'm going to move it.
There's also about that hour gap, which I think is like 6 to 7-ish or so in the 6 to 7 range. And they make that sound so certain that that's when the murder and assault is taking place. And it's like, just because nothing's happening on both of their phones at the same time doesn't mean that they were together. And it does not mean that there was a murder.
Right. What the fuck, man?
So
wow.
Yeah. Here we are finally at the biggest fucking issue of this case. And I think you know what it is. It's that Eric doesn't sound like Quentin.
You literally had the person who died give you the name of the person who killed them, and they're just ignoring it.
No one can get past this. I'm sorry. Fuck all the other evidence. No one can get past this. He did go by Quint, but that's also a different sound than Eric.
Not even close. Yeah. Not even fucking close.
No. And the way that the prosecution got around this, and I hated the way the fucking prosecutor said this. It was like, I forget what kind of interview it was, but he goes, yeah, and he's so dismissive. Literally, this is the tone. I'm trying to recreate it. He's like, oh, the fact that she said Eric, we can get over that. We can get around that. And I'm like,
but why?
This is a girl who's burning alive. She knows these are her last like 10 words on Earth. And she says Eric multiple times, not just one time.
My God. Okay? What the fuck?
Here, they do try to get around it. And the way that they try to get around it is that, oh, her mouth was so damaged, she could not have been pronouncing anything correctly. And she couldn't pronounce C or T sounds properly because she did say things like ol when she said she was trying to say cold. And she said hersey when she was trying to say thirsty. But even with that, like some of the words getting harder to understand, I still don't think that it's possible.
How did she say her last name?
Chambers.
Oh, with a T?
Thank you.
Oh, with a big fat fucking T, like Quentin?
The prosecution also proposes that she was trying to say Tellis, which I guess is closer to Eric, but still not.
Not even close. Like, we can get over the fact that their cell phones weren't close. We can get over the fact that she named her murderer and it wasn't this guy. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Tellis is only closer because it's 2 syllables. I mean, I guess. I don't know. Quentin is too, but Quentin is such a specific sound. If she said the sentence, I was lit on fire. If she said that sentence, I think she's pronouncing things okay.
Well enough that if she's saying Eric, you can think it might be Derek.
And they argue that it would have gotten harder to understand her as her condition worsened, which, like, of course, but at least in the start of when they first found her, she said, my name is Jessica Chambers and I was lit on fire. You know?
Like,
that's a whole ass sentence.
It was Eric. Like, it sounds like they did all of this within the same couple of minutes. And it's like, no, it's insane to me. Why don't they just come out and be like, we want to convict this guy. We don't actually care who did it. This is the easy out. We're a bunch of fucking racists. Because That's it. That is the long and short of what's happening here.
It's the vibe, yeah, for sure.
At least based on their idea of what happened. Now, whether or not he actually did it based on what you think is another story, but like going with what
they don't care
saying,
what happened.
They don't. They just want this guy to go to prison for no reason. Like,
I just want to note as a sad aside, the firefighters who first find her like all cry on the stand, and they all had horrific PTSD. Some of them had like ruined marriages and like therapy and like seeing her that way actually like wrecked their lives.
Fuck, dude, that sucks.
Because it was very traumatic.
Yeah, I imagine.
All right, I'm going to rush through this, but the first trial results in a very chaotic hung jury in which it comes very close to being not guilty. But then one fucking guy is like, I didn't agree with it as they're reading the verdict. And then this whole chaotic thing happens.
No.
It's a whole messy scene. Yeah. Dude. So they eventually find out that they can't agree.
That's so annoying.
In between the two trials, because there's a second one, the prosecutor from the first trial, you'll love this, Cindy. The prosecutor from the first trial is actually tried for prosecutorial misconduct when an inmate at the prison says that he tried to get him to testify against Quentin and force him to lie and say that Quentin told him that Jessica called him Eric, like a nickname.
Why the fuck? Stop. Just go find the person who did this, you fucking pieces of trash. Like, the fuck is wrong with you?
So
it's like,
and guess what the judge finds? He's like, no, the prosecutor's awesome. We love him. So he's fine. Nothing happened.
Fuck you, Mississippi. All y'all like, what the fuck?
Okay,
so egregious. This is so egregious.
So Quentin is tried again in 2018. The only thing to really note of this, because it's pretty similar, is that some of the first responder witnesses that come back have been definitely coached to walk back their certainty around hearing Eric.
No. Why would they?
Very obvious to me. It's very obvious to me that they've been pressured in some capacity, and not all of them, just some of them. The second trial also results in a hung jury.
Jesus fucking Christ!
So no one has been convicted of Jessica's murder. I'm not sure if they plan to try Quentin again. Probably.
Why don't they leave him the fuck alone and go find the stalker with the violent past whose name is almost Eric?
I don't know, dude. Okay, I'm gonna give you my thoughts on this at the end because I don't want to totally exonerate Quentin.
Okay.
And here's another reason why we shouldn't. So currently, Quentin Tejelas is facing a whole other trial, separate, for the stabbing of Ming Chen Mandy Zhao in August 2022 in Louisiana.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. And this seems like a little more of an airtight case, although maybe Quentin's just the most unlucky persecuted man alive. I don't know.
I mean,
but it's happened. But yeah. But Quentin got married at some point.
Okay.
And his wife's cousin is planning on testifying that Quentin confessed to him. This is how this broke. Quentin confessed to him about robbing and stabbing Mandy, like a detailed confession.
Wow.
So witnesses also saw Quentin and Mandy together, saw them arguing. They're on security video together on a Walmart security cam right before her death.
Okay.
And he pleaded guilty to the unauthorized use of her credit card.
Okay.
So,
but I mean, that doesn't
great?
It doesn't, but that also doesn't mean that he killed her. That he
Jessica.
Killed Jessica. No, and I think that I feel much more willing to bet that he did if they actually like did their fucking jobs instead of just being like worthless sacks of fetid fucking garbage. Like, look into the other possible suspects, rule them out, find some way that he could have actually done this that would make sense. Because whether or not he killed, it's like Otis Toole. Like, yeah, you definitely killed a bunch of people, but you didn't kill all the people that you guys said you did. You know what I mean? Like, Henry Lee Lucas. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that he did this other murder.
No, and just one more tiny note here about Mandy's murder. In the confession, he reportedly told his cousin that he included several details in this that had not been released to the public yet, including that he tortured Mandy with small knife cuts in order to make her give him his PIN number.
Oh, wow.
And that's actually what happened in the autopsy. They said that she was tortured with the knife.
Wow. Okay.
So, look, so here's the thing. Here's what you just said was exactly it. The shitty police work makes it impossible to be totally like sure of anything.
Right.
Because they did just such a bad job either way. And they never effectively proved that he did it. And they never
Right.
effectively investigated anyone else, you know?
Right.
They just did this weird, like, myopic, like, look at him in this way that wasn't actually even a thorough investigation into him.
Right.
So it makes it really hard. I mean, here's my Detective Diva's take on it.
Okay.
Detective Diva says that I am still suspicious of him, even though this has every, like, ding ding ding, like, check, you know, list of red flag of a black guy getting railroaded for a crime of murder of a white woman.
Right.
To me, what the problem I have is just they spent the whole fucking day together. Like,
Yeah.
that's the problem I have. It's her itinerary. It's her, like, day book. It's that they were texting. He was asking for sex. I don't know if, oh my God, shut up, New York.
The sounds of the city, Diva. It's fine.
Sounds of the city. Anyway, so, like, to me, I just still can't, like, totally exonerate him, even though the cell phone tower thing might not be 100%.
Right.
It's just the coincidence of them being together all day, right up until then. Like, but again, there is a block in time, so it is conceivably possible that he went his separate way and she met up with someone else.
Right.
Or ran into someone else, or someone else had been stalking her, or grabbed her, or abducted her, or, like, you know,
Right.
it is conceivable that happened.
It sounds
And
like it is.
I think the sole reason for the hung jury, in my opinion, both times, is fucking Eric. You can't get past that. You cannot get past that.
That's not an accident. That's not.
And she knew Quentin. Like, she literally would have said Quentin.
Yeah.
Quentin, tell us.
She said Quint. She could have said in. You know, she can't say it.
Even if your mouth is fucked up, the sounds would have been closer.
It's not Eric. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not. I would be more open to believing that Quentin did it if they ruled Eric out instead of just pretending, or ruled Derek out instead of just pretending that didn't happen and has no place in reality. Like, it's not acceptable to me for that to be the way that they've decided to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and
it's not okay.
Another juror said that she could never get over the older black man that was there at the scene. And and I agree with that too. And, like, for instance, there's one of the defense lawyers did a great closing argument where she says, like, just haunted me. Oh my God, beeping people. It just haunted me because, like, she was like, we know from multiple people, that this guy was at the scene.
Yeah.
And she as she, like, dropped her pen, she was like, we think that was Eric. And I was like, what if it was Eric? Like, we don't know.
Right. Like, what the fuck? Like,
we don't know.
Yeah, this is really fucking frustrating. This is so frustrating.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. That's the case. And I tried to do as fast as I could. There's a ton of information on it and documentaries and, like, 8-part things. I watched one of them, but it's really sad. And it's really sad how racialized this has gotten.
Right.
And, like I said, how people use this to be racist when she was not a racist person and, like, hung out with black people her whole entire life and was never a racist person.
Right.
And, like, it's very much, of course, it's a missing white girl, not missing in her case, but, like, a murdered white woman syndrome thing too, where
for sure
she gets, like, overpainted. I don't want to besmirch her either, but I think she would have even said, I think, from what I know about Jessica, that she gets over innocentized in the press.
Right.
Where it's like, blue-eyed, blonde-haired cheerleader, wholesome girl, savagely murdered. And it's like, come on, like, she was smoking weed while driving around, like, that morning, like, you know what I mean? Like, she was a normal rebellious teenager. She wasn't like perfect. She
was not this perfect angel that we all need to be extra upset about what happened to her and, like, pull out the pitchforks. Like,
but it was fucking upsetting and brutal.
Yeah, but none of that has to be, like, there doesn't need to be that additional shit. You know what I mean? Like, you can
racial
just
shit. Yeah,
it can just be terrible because it's fucking terrible. You know?
Yeah. But you know, it's frustrating. And, like I said, I think Quentin could have done it, especially since I think he might have killed a separate person.
Right.
That also doesn't look good for the Jessica situation.
No. Wow, that got way more conversational than normal. So hopefully that was interesting for people to hear us, because that felt good to me to work that shit out.
I know, it's been good to talk about. I feel like I'm in therapy, like Jessica Chambers therapy. Like,
seriously,
it's frustrating. But, like I said, I feel like it comes down to the fact that the cops didn't do their job either way.
Yeah,
so
they really fucked up. Like, in trying to just, like, there just has to be an era where we hold them fucking accountable, because in this case, like, she's not getting justice, and it's literally like pretty much their fucking fault.
It feels like it's impossible to know what happened.
Yeah,
so
that sucks. Wow. Okay. Well, this was an intense fucking first episode. I hope you all enjoy it. Hope you all are happy that like all the gnarly shit. Ugh. We're going to come back with 2 more super fucking traumatizing cases because there's just no way for them to not be.
Great.
If you'd like to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on TikTok, it's @twistedlisters. If you'd like to join us on Instagram, you can do that at
Twisted Listers PCast.
If you'd like to send us an email with case suggestions, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod@gmail.com.
And if you would like to check out our website, you can do that at
twistedlisterspod.com.
And please like, rate, review, share with your friends. We want to keep going and growing. So let everybody know. And while you're doing that, and until next time,
stay
off our
list.